So now let's talk about prototyping and rapid prototyping. So when you're developing your application, and if it's going to be a visual application, basically you're going to have a UI, UX. People are going to be clicking on things or interacting with it, right? The initial process for developing your application is going to be something called a wireframe. And so what all the wireframe is you can literally use pen and paper and draw out what you want your application to look like. And the idea here is you want to get ideas and feedback from other people to get a grasp of how forms should look, how reports should look, more or less how the flow of the application should be, so that you can figure all of that out when it's as easy to change as simply crossing something out and drawing something else there, right? If you actually get into VS Code, if you get into the IDE and you're coding out your project, if you code out your project and then somebody says, well, I don't really like how that looks, it can be very difficult to modify it once you've actually started coding. Whereas if you ever have everything just, again, written out with pen and paper, or you use some other kind of wireframing service, basically it's very easy to modify things. Past the wireframe, you're then going to want to get to the prototyping stage. And so what the prototyping stage is where you use a service, possibly like Canva, as I'll show you in a second, or maybe Figma, or many other prototyping services out there. And basically what you're going to do is within the application, you are going to create a prototype of what you're trying to create and actually make things that are clickable in it, and will show you basically a representation of what the response should look like. And the idea here is that you can put this in front of the executives or put this in front of the users and say, this is how the application is going to flow. Do you understand what to do next? Again, when we talk about UI, UX, user interface, user experience design, that's a big problem, right? You can spend all the time in the world developing amazing artificial intelligence capabilities, but if nobody knows how to ask the question, it doesn't matter, right? And so the idea with prototyping is you create something to give people the actual feel of what the application will look like. So with that, let's go over to the computer and I'll show you an exceedingly simple prototype I created for an AI app. So here we are on my computer, and basically I've created an exceedingly simple AI app using a service called Canva. So Canva has a free service. I would definitely say that you should play around with it. So basically the idea with my little app here, since all we're doing is a class, is I want to show people it's like what this app will be like when they use it. So they would come to basically the home page for the app. You can see here that there would be a query and that there would be a submit button. So basically you could ask the AI something and then you could submit it. If we come down here, we can see basically what the response would be. It would show what the query was that I put in and then what the answer would be for whatever else, right? So basically, the important thing here is not to worry about the query or the answer or the database or anything like that. Basically, this is trying to give the look and feel and the flow for how this application will work. So if I can go up here, I can go down to viewing, so read only, and basically, right? So here I am at my index, so I could type in, again, whatever query that I want, and then I can click submit. See, when I click submit, that then brings me to the response page. I see what the query is. I see what the answer is. I can say, okay, if I want to do another query, I can click on new query, right? That brings me back to the home page. I can plug in a new query. I can hit submit. I can do a new query, so on and so forth. Again, this is very, very simple, but this gives you the idea of what the prototype would be like. So beyond prototyping, there's something called rapid prototyping. And rapid prototyping is more a workflow for you to be thinking about, basically as you get responses from users about how your prototype should change. So now that you can use services such as Canva or Figma, basically it is very easy to modify prototypes now. Back in the day, right, not that long ago, right, 15, 20 years ago, prototypes were a pain in the butt to create and to modify. But the cool thing now now is, again, with these different services, it's just point click and it's pretty simple to do. So all rapid prototyping is basically the process that you use to take the input from users and be able to put that into your prototype to modify it so that you can continually improve your prototype and make it better. Again, there's something called the Agile Project Management System, and basically one of the big things with the Agile Project Management System is the concept of constant iteration, constant improvement. So you don't design for the finished product, you design for as good as you can build now, create that, show that to the user, get feedback, modify it a little bit, show it to the user, get feedback, modify it a little bit, so on and so forth. The big thing though with rapid prototyping that you're going to need to be thinking about is, again, more the workflow. Again, doing the rapid prototyping is easy. You just open the file, you modify the file, that's that. But here's a problem. When you're going out and you're showing 10 or 20 or 30 different users your prototype and getting their input, one of the questions you need to ask yourself is, whose input do you take and whose input do you ignore, right? If you ask 30 people their opinions, you're going to get 30 different opinions. And so one of the big problems you can have, especially for new coders, is they take everybody's advice and then they just get a mess. So one of the things you're going to need to think about is when you create your prototype and when you go out to solicit feedback from users, is taking that feedback and then trying to figure out what feedback you're actually going to use, what feedback are you going to implement into your prototype, and essentially what feedback are you going to ignore. That's one of those skills. That's a skill that you will learn simply by doing. It's not necessarily something that somebody like me can teach you, but it's definitely something to consider. So that's all there is to prototyping. Basically, you're creating something that people can play with in the environment where they would normally use whatever product it is that you're going to be creating. So you can create a prototype for a mobile application, you can create a prototype for a web application, that type of thing. And again, all you're doing is just trying to see how the users actually would interact with your app and make sure the functionality that you're designing for is what they're actually looking for. That's all you have to worry about with prototyping. And then with rapid prototyping, and again, in the modern world, it is so easy to do.